Chapter 91, an unspeakable fondness. Since she had already fallen asleep, he might as well. Yin Shoji's impulse tempted him like the cries of a demon as he eventually caved into it. He lowered his head, and he could smell the scent of a young woman coming from her, a scent so pure and pleasant. She was unlike other girls whose bodies always carried the smell of perfume or other cosmetics, which were all made from artificial fragrant essences. He had always disliked those smells. However, Mu Xiaoxiao was different. Her body carried a natural fragrance that made one feel very comfortable. Suddenly, he remembered that when she was young, her body always carried the smell of milk. It was especially pleasant and always tempted him to stay close to her. At that time, the wretch used to be very clingy. It was about the time that she just learned to walk. She would walk like a penguin, swaying side to side. She would hold her milk bottle with one hand and tug onto his shirt with the other hand, always walking behind him. No matter where he went, she would act like a copycat, following him. As Yin Shoji recalled his childhood, he couldn't help but smile. He felt intimacy in the air and grew the urge to get close to her. At this moment, Mu Xiaoxiao appeared unimaginably lovable. Her delicate face looked naive and innocent, and it was as if she could just be bullied into anything. This wretch has never looked so lovable before. She was just like a cute little pet, extremely lovable. This was the trigger that spurred the demon inside him. Yin Shoji had always been one to get whatever he desired. Hence, when the thought floated into his mind, he did not hesitate. A strange current stirred in his heart. What was that feeling? Yin Shoji couldn't describe it. It felt like something had shot him in the heart. He felt soft, numb, and warm. That was a feeling he had never experienced. His focus gradually returned to reality. Looking up, he gazed at her, and she was oblivious to everything and still sleeping soundly. Yin Shoji chuckled a little, realizing that she was slightly cruel. He was stirred up by her. His heart was rolling with unprecedented sentiments and beating so quickly that it might just explode. But on the other hand, she was sleeping soundly, oblivious to everything. It was cruel for him to look. He reached out to rub the tip of her nose. Oh, no, it didn't seem so. Not knowing whether it was just his delusion, but he had a vague feeling that her heartbeat was also speeding up. Yin Shoji was strangely pleased by the thought, and the corner of his lips curled up even more. He lowered his head. His exceptionally handsome face drew close to her, and he could see her long, curly eyelashes clearly. Their breaths encircled as if they were breathing the same air. Even their heartbeats seemed to have fallen into synchrony. It was an intimate, delicate feeling. But Yin Shoji really liked it and was incredibly fond of it. He felt as if this was the way they should be, just like when they were young. They were inseparable. Even if they had quarreled, they would have made up quickly and gotten together again. Though he had been used to the wretch's looks since they were childhood friends, it was only on this day that he had found himself seriously scrutinizing her facial features. So, this wretch actually looks really pretty. Her eyelashes are long and curly, her nose is well defined, and her face is like a peeled egg, exquisitely fair. His gaze circled around and finally landed upon her lips. Chapter 92, feeling a guilty conscience thinking of the sweetness he just tasted, Yin Shoji couldn't refrain from feeling restless. He couldn't help but move closer and lightly peck her lips, but it wasn't as thorough as he had done previously. Seeing Mu Xiaoxiao's eyelashes flutter like a butterfly before it took flight, he was suddenly caught by surprise. He raised his head immediately in a stiff motion, shifted away from her to the other side of the bed, and conveniently laid there, pretending to be resting. Unexpectedly, Mu Xiaoxiao was not sleeping. Her small hand grabbed onto his shirt, her head drawing closer and digging into his chest. Then, she fell asleep again. Yin Shoji looked down at her expression as she slept. He looked awkward and was unsure whether to laugh or cry. But, it was all good as long as he was not found out. He paused for a moment and reached out his hand to wrap around her slender waist. Slightly lowering his head and planting his tall nose on her neck, he breathed in her bodily fragrance. Which shower gel does this wretch use? Her body smells so good. The next day, Mu Xiaoxiao woke up to a splitting headache and rolled unbearably on the bed. My head hurts, this sucks. Her head felt as if it was going to explode. She could hardly endure the pain as tears squeezed from the corner of her eyes. She looked very pitiful. As Yin Shoji walked over to the bed with a glass in hand, he clicked his tongue and pulled her up with his long arms. Do you know what pain is now? Drink this. It'll get better. Mu Xiaoxiao obediently leaned on his arm and drank it. Then, she grimaced with disgust. This drink sucks. When Yin Shoji saw that she had finished the drink, he let go of her, leaving the glass at the bedside cabinet. Then, out of nowhere, he popped out a lollipop and stuffed it into her mouth. The sweetness of the strawberry flavor took over the bitterness, and Mu Xiaoxiao started to look more relaxed. I'm saved. I can't stand bitterness, she said as she laid back onto the bed again, still sucking on the lollipop. Yin Shoji gave her a glance. You keep sleeping then. I'll be off. Mu Xiaoxiao laid for a while and finished the lollipop. The medicine had taken effect, and her head was no longer hurting too badly. However, her stomach then began to growl. Thus, she had no choice but to get out of bed. She then stepped out of the room while in slippers. Gee, I'm hungry, she shouted like a kid as she walked into the living room. Yin Shoji was just sitting on the sofa with an Apple laptop on his thighs. His eyes stared at the screen, his long fingers typing furiously. It was unclear what he was doing. I'm hungry, she repeated as she walked over to his side and sat on the sofa. Yin Shoji seemed to be hiding something. He closed the laptop and glared at her. Isn't there food on the table? Get it yourself. Mu Xiaoxiao pouted her lips. I don't want to move. What she really meant was that she wanted him to get it for her. Yin Shoji pushed his finger into her chest, looking very disapproving of her as he said, Mu Xiaoxiao, why are you so lazy? Brush your teeth and wash your face. Then come back and eat your breakfast. He had bought the breakfast for her himself. What else did she expect from him? But I'm really hungry, Mu Xiaoxiao cried pitifully. She acted coy as she tugged at his sleeve and placed her head on it. Yin Shoji's handsome face was unnaturally red. When she entered his intimate space, he could smell her scent and was reminded of his shenanigans last night. He had a guilty conscience and pushed her away. Stop sticking on to me. You're an adult. Stop acting coy. Go brush your teeth. Do you still expect your young master to serve you? Stop dreaming and get going. Chapter 93, her small mouth was so sweet Mu Xiaoxiao pouted her lips and squinted at him unhappily. Alright, I'll go, she thought that Yin Shoji was acting oddly. He still cared for her and even remembered that she hated bitter tastes just a while ago when he gave her the lollipop. She couldn't help but feel a little moved by his gesture. Who knew that in a wink, he would already be giving her the cold shoulder. Mu Xiaoxiao looked dejected as she left the sofa and walked to the bathroom to wash her face and rinse her mouth. When she left the bathroom, Yin Shoji was already sitting at the dining table as if he was waiting for her. Mu Xiaoxiao smiled and walked over to sit beside him. Seeing the breakfast on the table, her eyes couldn't help but glimmer and she joyfully said, Gee, you remembered what I like to eat. You bought all of my favorites. I bought them randomly. Who'd still remember what you like to eat? Yin Shoji said. However, he then opened the lid and placed the porridge in front of her and still remembered to warn her, the porridge is hot, so be careful. First, I want to drink milk. Mu Xiaoxiao reached out her arms to grab the strawberry milk and then opened it. Yin Shoji was amused as he watched and teased her, Xiaoxiao, how old are you? Haven't you stopped drinking milk? Isn't strawberry something only kids like to eat? Mu Xiaoxiao finished and put down the empty bottle. She stared at him and said, I just love strawberries. It's none of your business. Yin Shoji saw the milk around her mouth and couldn't help but clasp his mouth as he laughed. Ha ha ha, look at you, Mu Xiaoxiao. Are you going to have me laugh to death? Ayo, my stomach hurts. I can't take this anymore. This is killing me. At this moment, Mu Xiaoxiao's mouth was stained with milk. It looked really comical. It was no wonder that Yin Shoji would laugh so hard. What? Mu Xiaoxiao quickly wiped the stain around her mouth with the back of her hand. There's still some over there. Can't you feel it? Yin Shoji laughed enough. He reached out his hand, wanting to help her wipe it off. Upon hearing him, Mu Xiaoxiao instinctively licked around her lips and by coincidence, the tip of her pink tongue licked his finger. When he felt the soft, moist tongue lick his fingers, Yin Shoji was stunned and stared at her in a daze. He couldn't help but think back to last night. Her mouth was so sweet, and her cute tongue was so soft. It was even intertwined with his, Gee, your face, it's flushing red. What's wrong? Mu Xiaoxiao asked curiously. Yin Shoji turned his face away unnaturally, and he withdrew his hand in a stiff motion. Coughing in an effort to distract her, he said, I'm fine. Maybe the porridge is too hot. You should start eating. Didn't you say you were hungry? Oh, Mu Xiaoxiao did not notice anything amiss. Suddenly, her face got close to his. She even pouted her lips and asked, So do I still have any milk around my mouth? Her gesture caused Yin Shoji's heart to beat in disarray. She looked as if she was serving herself up for him to kiss. He smoothly retreated a distance and took a tissue from the side and passed it to her. Looking as if he was giving her the cold shoulder, he said, You wipe it yourself. It's your mouth. Can't you feel it? You should know if there's something on your mouth. Mu Xiaoxiao licked her bottom lip again and realized something before frowning. My mouth feels a little painful. I think the skin is broken. How did this happen? She batted her eyes and thought about it, having no inkling of when she might have hurt her mouth. How would I know? You must have been careless and bit it accidentally, Yin Shoji said, his expression showing signs of nervousness. Chapter 94, Did I provoke him? Mu Xiaoxiao looked puzzled, but she didn't doubt what he said. She thought that she might really have bit herself accidentally, as she could think of no other reasons. After she thought it through, she no longer cared because it was nothing severe. She dried her lips with the tissue and went upstairs. In a short while, she came back down noisily in her slippers. Gee, do you have a VIP membership to any of the brand name clothing stores? She asked upon coming down the stairs. Then, she saw that Yin Shoji had changed his clothes and seemed to be going out. Where are you going? Out to play. She frowned, looking conflicted as she was feeling too weak. She didn't feel like going out and only wanted to stay at home. Yeah, Yin Shoji unenthusiastically replied. Seeing as she had no intention of accompanying him, he said, You just stay at home and rest. I have some things to take care of and will be back a little late. Oh, seeing that he was about to leave, Mu Xiaoxiao stepped up hurriedly. Hey, you haven't told me if you have any VIP memberships. Yin Shoji turned back and glanced at her, looking slightly annoyed. What do you want with it? Mu Xiaoxiao noticed that he was giving her the cold shoulder. She didn't know what she had done to provoke him. However, she still explained, I want to buy some clothes because I only brought a few clothes back. However, I don't want to leave the house. It's tiring. Girls, they always needed more clothes. Then again, she had only brought with her a single luggage bag and it couldn't fit too many clothes. It was already the end of the week and they had school the next day. There was no time for her to buy clothes. Yin Shoji clicked his tongue. You're such a pain. Can't you do it some other time? Even though he said that, he returned to the living room and took the iPad from the coffee table to open an app on it. Given your young master status, any brand would have to honor me like a bodhisattva. How could I not have VIP memberships? You can do the shopping yourself. I'll be off. He tossed the iPad to her without even looking at her and left. Mu Xiaoxiao fumbled the catch. She was lucky to be nimble enough that the iPad did not drop to the floor. When she looked back, Yin Shoji had already left. She pouted and grumbled, saying, what's wrong with him? He was treating me well just yesterday, but today he's acting so cold. It's true that you can't fathom a man's heart. I have no idea what Yin Shoji is thinking about. However, she suddenly thought of something. Last night at the bar, he went out to answer a long call. Initially, he hung up the phone, looking as if he didn't want to take the call, but in the end, he answered it out of frustration. Who called him? Could it be the phone call that had put him in a bad mood such that he would take his anger out on her? Though she didn't know if it was true, Mu Xiaoxiao had at least found a reason to explain Yin Shoji's change in attitude. Alright then, everyone gets angry sometimes. She forgave him. Mu Xiaoxiao sat back on the sofa and crossed her legs before putting the iPad on her thighs. She began to browse the app. It was an ordering system that was only accessible to VIP members. The truly wealthy did not have to visit the specialty stores to buy clothes. The companies made such an app just for them. They would put up the newest items on the app and the VIP members only needed to select what they wanted. The stores would then send someone to deliver the items. They could purchase the items after they had tried them on and were satisfied with them. Chapter 95, Little Strawberry Panties. The orders could be made to even the biggest brands from overseas. They would use private planes to send the items to these customers. These services were absolutely top tier. As they say, it's good to be rich. Mu Xiaoxiao spent the entire afternoon selecting clothes. Girls enjoyed it so much and they would never tire of it no matter how much time they spent doing it. These past few years, she had grown up to be a young lady. Since she left America, the clothes she was wearing were mostly young women's clothing from American brands. Fortunately, these brands were also available in China. She shopped with delight and would order whichever items caught her eye. After all, she didn't have to purchase it until she tried it on and found that it fit. After submitting the orders, in half an hour's time, the store sent a bunch of clothes and also a dedicated person to help. Unbeknown to Mu Xiaoxiao, it was already noon. Mu Xiaoxiao had just tried a skirt that she fancied. Then, her stomach began to growl. She clasped her stomach and walked out. Just as she was pondering over getting food delivered, she caught the smell of food. The smell tempted her and she nearly drooled. How fragrant. What is that? Why are there so many clothes? Mu Xiaoxiao, did you buy the whole store? Yin Shoji's attractive voice came from the entrance. Why are you back? Mu Xiaoxiao walked over, curious to be seeing him. Yin Shoji cast a glance at her and said, can't I be back? This is my home. Mu Xiaoxiao saw the bag he was carrying in his hand. The smell had wafted from there. She ran to him vivaciously. All smiles, she looked at him and said, you didn't buy lunch especially for me, did you? Hubby, you're the best. Then, she pouted her mouth and closed in on him to give him a kiss. Her kiss stunned Yin Shoji for a moment. His heart felt as if it was touched by something, his heartbeat in disarray. Mu Xiaoxiao was unaware that she had disturbed the stillness of his heart. She snatched the bag, then headed over to sit at the dining table before beginning to open the bags. Wow, pizza, and roasted chicken. Just what I wanted to eat. Yin Shoji regained his usual expression and coughed unnaturally. Without joining her at the table, he walked over to the sofa and looked at all the clothes in front of him. They were all cute and girly, mostly in pink. He knitted his eyebrows as he chanced upon a box lying on the coffee table. Then, he curiously picked up the item within the box. Upon unfolding it, he saw that it was a pair of panties with a strawberry design printed on it. He couldn't help but stare blankly at the item in his hands. He was actually holding her panties, his handsome face flushed red uncontrollably. Mu Xiaoxiao was eating joyfully when she subconsciously looked over and saw that sight. Suddenly, she shrieked and flew over, snatching the panties from his hands in one stroke. Oi! Why are you touching my stuff? You're a pervert. Her face flushed red, and her big eyes stared at him as she lashed out. Yin Shoji suddenly smiled devilishly. Picking up the other little pair of panties from the box and deliberately dangling it in front of her, he drawled, Xiaoxiao, don't tell me that you wear this. I told you not to touch it. You're touching it again. Mu Xiaoxiao attempted to snatch it back. Yin Shoji playfully laughed as he flicked his long fingers, pulling it away from her. I'm your hubby. Why can't I touch it? I can't believe your little panties actually has a strawberry design. Isn't that too childish? I prefer the black laced ones. Mu Xiao was red to her ears. Why would I care to know your preferences? Give it back quickly. You're a pervert. Chapter 96. Wanting to kiss her again, blushing with shame, she reached out to snatch it again. After all, it was her intimate clothing. For it to be held in a guy's hand made her feel like digging a hole to hide away from the shame. Ah, how did it end up like this? It was only because he wasn't home that she dared to put it on the table like that. Who knew that he would come back without warning? You call this perverted? Yin Shoji raised his eyebrows and made a wicked look. As she reached out her hand, he took the chance to grab her hand and pulled her onto the sofa. He then pinned her against the corner of the sofa. Yin Shoji, stop messing around. Hurry and give that thing back to me. You're a guy, yet you're holding onto a girl's little panties. Do you know no shame? Mu Xiao was red from the face down to her neck. At this moment, she was fixated upon the panties and didn't realize that they were in a suggestive position. Didn't you say that I was perverted? Then I shall have you witness the meaning of perversion. Yin Shoji seemed to have thought of a bright idea, his slender lips turning into a wicked smile. You give it back to me. Mu Xiao swung her short arms, single-mindedly attempting to retrieve the panties, turning a deaf ear to what he was saying. How could she compete with Yin Shoji's long limbs? Her arms were too short. All he had to do was extend his arms and she could never reach the panties. It made her even more restless. Yin Shoji. She was going mad and howled at him. Hubby's here. Yin Shoji laughed and watched her anxious look and she flushed red like a strawberry. It was incredibly amusing. She was cute in every way. He couldn't bear to not play with her. Mu Xiao stared at him, flustered and exasperated. She puffed her cheeks and stared at him with a fire in her eyes. What is it that you want? I don't want anything. Yin Shoji acted innocent. Then give the thing back to me. Mu Xiao was too embarrassed to say the word. Yin Shoji lowered his head and saw her open hand. He pretended to be dissatisfied and snorted before saying, Is that the attitude you show when asking a favor of others? How arrogant. He's clearly the arrogant one. Mu Xiao thought that he was simply unreasonable. Then, please, I'm begging you, give it back to me, all right. She quickly changed her tactics and acted coy. Her voice was soft, and her limpid eyes stared at him. No good. You just said that I was perverted. He wanted to settle the score with her, still hoping to show her the meaning of perversion. But the wretch was not acting as expected and just ignored what he had said previously. Initially, since he wanted to keep last night's kiss a secret, he felt the need to act cold to her in the morning. However, since the opportune moment to make advances on her had appeared, how could he simply let it go? At this moment when they were close to each other, he could smell the scent of her youthful womanly fragrance. He thought about the sweetness and softness of the kiss last night. I want to kiss her again. Mu Xiao could feel him inching closer, then she realized that he had pinned her into a corner of the sofa, making it so that they were in a suggestive position. If someone were to see it, they would think, at this moment, Yin Shoji suddenly raised her chin. In a sexy voice, he asked, Would you like to know the real meaning of perversion? Chapter 97. She must be mad. His warm breath landed over her face, his peppermint breath seeming to have engulfed her. Her cheek was hot, and her heart was beating rapidly. Mu Xiao retracted her neck and strangely avoided looking into his eyes. It felt like she was being sucked into the depths of his gaze. I don't want to know, all right. She stuttered, feeling that her heart might be sick because it was as if she had just completed a run in physical education class. Her heart was beating rapidly, and it was as if it might pop out soon. No, he denied imposingly. Mu Xiao glanced at him and felt that he was up to no good. He must be plotting something. She wouldn't be forced to go along with him. I don't want to know. You give the thing back to me quickly. She ignored his intentions and had only one objective, which was to retrieve the panties from his hand. Then, she wanted to run back to the room and lock herself in there and refuse to see anyone. Okay, I'll give it to you. Yin Shoji was suddenly agreeable as he passed it to her. Mu Xiao looked doubtfully at him. Really, he wouldn't give it to her then, but he was now returning it on his own accord. It was fishy. What exactly are his motives? Don't want it. Yin Shoji smiled as a demon seemed to have flashed in his eyes. I want it. She anxiously nodded her head, afraid that he would go back on his word, and frantically went for the panties. However, Yin Shoji played dirty. Just at the right moment, he withdrew his hand. Yin Shoji, are you playing with me? Mu Xiao gritted her teeth. Of course not. If you want it back, shouldn't you be giving me something in return? Yin Shoji stared at her eyes, his smile seemingly hiding mischief. Then you want, she was going to say his intentions, but Yin Shoji's face moved closer. Their faces were just a few centimeters apart and still inching closer. What do you think? He said in a low and fatally charming voice. Could he want? As he drew closer, Mu Xiao's face grew hotter and she shut her eyes in panic. Her mind was in chaos and it was as if she thought whether he might actually want to. Suddenly, something covered her head and she opened her eyes agitatedly. Ha 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 ha, she heard Yin Shoji's wanton laughter. His hand was no longer holding onto the panties, so that could only mean, Yin. Shao, gee. There was a shriek, and the apartment seemed to quake. Mu Xiao was infuriated. This bastard actually used the panties. What's worse, that bastard, Yin Shoji, had taken a photo of her helpless look with his phone. What do you think? Is this perverted? Mu Xiao's face flushed with redness as she frantically went to retrieve the panties, throwing herself at him. Yin Shoji, I will kill you. She collided directly into Yin Shoji. He stumbled and nearly fell back, but he quickly caught her waist and pulled her onto the sofa where the two fell together. Mu Xiao beat his chest several times and wanted to snatch the phone. Delete that photo right this moment. Give me the phone. Yin Shoji did not even show any signs of fear about her small fists and was still laughing heartily. Ha ha, did you know how funny you looked? That's too adorable. Say, if I were to send this to my parents, do you think they would like it? You dare. She howled at him, feeling so stupid. She even thought that he had wanted to kiss her. So he was deliberately luring her into shutting her eyes, all for his scheme. She must have been mad to think that he would kiss her. Chapter 98, This will be my hold on you. How could she deal with Yin Shoji's long arms? He needed only to retract his hand towards the top of his head, and her short arms would never reach it. Yin Shoji retracted his hand to look at the picture on his phone. Then, he couldn't help but snicker. I could laugh at this picture for the whole year. I'd better keep it safe. Hearing that he was going to keep it for a collection, Mu Xiao cried frantically, will you delete it? There's nothing nice about that picture. You're really perverted. Yin Shoji shrugged his shoulders, and he was smiling with his eyes. I think it's cute. Don't you think so? Mu Xiao pulled a long face and stressed every word as she said, I don't think so. She was part of that ugly picture. How could she find it interesting? However, Yin Shoji was admiring it. The picture of her looking stupefied with her panties on her head was just delightful however he looked at it. How could he delete such a cute picture? After several years, he would still preserve the picture, occasionally taking it out to have a look, and he would always find it amusing and delightful. You're still looking at it. Yin Shoji, you're really annoying. Hurry up and delete it. Delete it. Delete it. Mu Xiao used both her hands and legs to grab it. Her whole body was resting on him as she expended all her efforts to reach his hand. Yin Shoji suddenly laughed devilishly. In a flirtatious mood, he deliberately blew a breath on her face. Xiao, your breasts are pressing against me. Mu Xiao startled. She looked down. Her breasts were indeed pressing snugly against his solid chest. She hadn't even realized it. Her face flushed red and she immediately got up from his body. Looking gloomy yet infuriated, she extended her hand to him. Give me the phone. Stop messing around. Okay, I'm not messing around. Yin Shoji was using his phone, saving the picture into a secret photo album. Mu Xiao crossed her legs and said to him anxiously, then delete the picture. You don't really want to keep such a perverted picture, do you? Yin Shoji nodded his head, laughing naughtily. He even waved the phone in front of her deliberately. Of course I will keep it. This will be my hold on you in the future. Mu Xiao instantly gave up as he seemed like he wouldn't be giving the picture back. Then you shall not let anyone else see this picture. Do you hear? If not, she made a fierce expression. Okay, he wouldn't want to share such a cute look with anyone else anyway. Mu Xiao had to give up for the time being, but she wouldn't just let the matter slide. She had to find another opportunity to retrieve the picture. She started scheming in her mind. Yin Shoji put the phone back into his pocket. He picked up the iPad from the coffee table and logged into the shopping app. He searched for the clothes placed in front of him and said disapprovingly, all these clothes are too childish. People might think that you are still an elementary school kid. You're in high school, so you should be wearing something prettier. Stop acting cute all the time. As he was talking, he swiped and searched through the app. When he found the items satisfactory, he put them into the shopping cart. Mu Xiao had a bad feeling about it and extended her head to take a peek. She happened to see that he had chosen a box of black lace panties and other clothing that was similarly provocative. This style was not what she was used to wearing. Just looking at it made her blush. Chapter 99, You dare not try it on. She glared at him and said, why did you choose these for me? I don't like these clothes. Don't buy them. However, the bastard immediately paid for the items when she was telling him not to buy them. He didn't send for someone to send the items over to let her try them on. Mu Xiao became so incensed that she slapped him twice on the shoulders. You wastrel. These clothes are so expensive. You didn't even consult me and just purchased it. If I don't like it, wouldn't it be a waste? Did he think that he had too much money to spend? He bought in one shot more than 10 sets of clothes, which added up to more than 100,000 yuan. Yin Shoji was all smiles. I'm buying these for my wife. What's wrong with it? Just look at the skirt you just purchased. One pair. More than 20,000 yuan. Isn't that robbery? There's so little material, and it's not even gold. How could it be so expensive? Brand items are expensive for a reason. Anyway, it's fine as long as it looks good. It does look good. But I don't like these clothes. Yin Shoji narrowed his eyes and slanted his mouth as he said harshly, "You dare to not try the clothes that I bought." Liu Xiaoxiao fell backward onto the sofa and groaned. She was even starting to feel like dying. She finally understood why he wanted to keep the photo. Now that he had a hold on her, it was hard for her to defy him. This bastard is too treacherous. Off to school on Monday. Just when Liu Xiaoxiao stepped into the classroom and sat down, Liu Jie turned his head, looking worried as he said to her, "Xiaoxiao, are you all right?" She batted her eyes, feeling puzzled. "I'm all right. Is there anything wrong with me?" Liu Jie turned his body and sat facing her. He seemed to be hesitating. Then he finally said, "Your confession with Liu Yichen, is that true? Did he accept you? You went to look for him because you like him and were going to confess to him. Is that right?" Liu Xiaoxiao then remembered the matter concerning the video. Not sure whether to laugh or cry, she said, "Of course not. Have you also watched the video? I was only looking for him regarding something, not to confess. I don't know who captured the video and spread rumors without understanding the fact of the matter." Upon hearing her denial, Liu Jie couldn't hide his delight. "For real, you didn't confess to Liu Yichen, right? You don't like him." "I like him," Liu Xiaoxiao replied. Liu Jie's expression stiffened. In an instant, his eyes revealed disappointment. Liu Xiaoxiao cheerfully explained, "I admire him, but I don't like him in a romantic manner. Guys like Liu Yichen, who was smart and handsome and had a steady and gentle personality that could make a girl feel safe, were every girl's dream. Most girls would feel the same way, wouldn't they?" Hearing that, Liu Jie was relieved. "Don't scare me, that's nothing to be scared about. Even if I were to have confessed to him, there's nothing wrong with that, is there?" She didn't understand why he felt so concerned. Liu Jie's face was unnaturally red. He tried to cover it up and said, "I only thought it was surprising to me. It's good as long as you were not confessing to him. But you had best find a way to clarify the situation. Don't worry, I'll help you. What's there to clarify? It's all rumors. The students will forget after some time." Liu Xiaoxiao did not seem affected since she had already explained it to Yin Shoji. She couldn't care about what other people would think of her. They couldn't hurt her, could they? However, Liu Jie thought differently. His expression seemed to indicate that it was a very serious matter. Chapter 100, so he actually cared. Looking worried, he said to her, "Xiaoxiao, you might still not be aware. Liu Yichen has many admirers. If they think that you have successfully confessed, they could." Liu Xiaoxiao waved her hand, seemingly unconcerned. "Don't worry. No one would dare do anything to me. She had the protection of Yin Shoji, that rascal. Who would dare to touch her?" However, she had forgotten one thing. Even if she knew, no one else knew about her relationship with Yin Shoji. "There's one more thing," Liu Jie recalled. His expression looked grim. He scanned the people around him apprehensively and drew closer to her. He then whispered, "That Friday, I heard that young Master Ji searched the entire school to look for you. I don't know if that's true. Did anything happen between the two of you? I also heard that young Master Ji broke up with Bai Meijiao on the same day. Everyone is spreading the news that you are young Master Ji's new target. He wants to woo you. You're saying that he searched the entire school looking for me?" Liu Xiaoxiao's eyes glimmered upon hearing that. She couldn't help but laugh up her sleeve. That rascal pretended to not care for her and left home by himself. She could almost imagine it. He must have searched the entire school, and when he couldn't find her, he had called her phone to no avail. Then he found out that she had skipped class with Liu Yichen. Perhaps that was what had made him angry. No wonder he was so infuriated that night. Liu Xiaoxiao felt so sweet. She looked down to send Yin Shoji a short text. At the end, she still cheekily sent a grimacing smiley. Liu Jie saw that she was acting so leisurely while he was the one being so anxious for her like a backseat driver. He asked anxiously, "Xiaoxiao, you said that you didn't like young Master Ji. Is that true? If he were to take the initiative to woo you, young Master Ji was, after all, a master at picking up girls, not to mention he was also a great catch. He was unrivaled in all of Shanghai. If he were to take the initiative to woo any girl, how would any girl resist him?" However, Liu Jie felt that Liu Xiaoxiao should be different. She was not one who would simply fall in love with a person because of his wealth and good looks. Before Liu Xiaoxiao could reply to him, the school bell rang. The English teacher stepped into class on the dot and immediately glanced at Liu Xiaoxiao. Liu Xiaoxiao quickly pushed Liu Jie and said, "Go back to your seat. The teacher's here." The English teacher was already thought badly of her. She didn't want to become a thorn in his flesh. Liu Jie didn't get his reply and felt very uneasy. "We'll speak after class then." However, after class, Liu Xiaoxiao received a short text. She let out an A sound in surprise. "What's up?" Liu Jie saw that the teacher had left and happened to see her surprise expression as he turned his head to look at her. Liu Xiaoxiao was smiling with her eyes, her face beaming as she said, "I have something to attend to. I have to go." Liu Jie's intuition told him that the matter had something to do with the text she had received. He questioned her frantically, "Who sent you the text? Where are you going?" How could Liu Xiaoxiao tell him? She had already left the classroom quickly. However, as she turned the corner and was about to go down the staircase, she met three girls who were walking towards her. They clearly appeared to be unfriendly and hostile. So you must be Mu Xiao Xiao. The leader of the three girls had curly brown hair that looked supple and meticulously taken care of. She wore the school's jacket, but her skirt was altered to a particularly short length.